Welcome back to my channel. In the great expanse of American coinage, some coins earn their place in history because of age, others because of beauty, and a rare few because of accident. But among the familiar denominations and years we think we understand, one coin quietly rewrites the script of rarity and intrigue. It's not a century-old silver relic or a coin forged in gold. It's something far more unassuming. It's the 1976 USA 1-dime coin, 10 cents by name, but worth far more in the right circumstances. And for those lucky enough to recognize its secrets, this small Roosevelt dime has proven time and again that true value often hides in plain sight. At first glance, a dime from 1976 seems as ordinary as any. It carries the same portrait we've known since 1946, Franklin D. Roosevelt facing left, his name and the word liberty etched to the left and right. The date rests neatly below his chin. Flip it over, and the reverse reveals the iconic torch, olive branch, and oak branch symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. The motto, E pluribus unum, wraps around it with national pride. The composition? Standard for its era, outer layers of copper-nickel bonded to an inner core of pure copper. To most people, this coin is simply one among millions, but 1976 wasn't just any year. It was the bicentennial of the United States. And while the quarter, half dollar, and dollar all received special bicentennial redesigns, the dime curiously did not. Its unchanged appearance made it the quiet sibling in a year of national celebration. Yet somewhere within the sea of normality, the 1976 dime was anything but standard. And that's where the story gets fascinating. In recent decades, collectors have unearthed a handful of 1976 dimes that shouldn't exist, not in the forms they were discovered. These coins exhibit rare errors, mint anomalies, and compositional oddities that defy logic and routine. Some were struck on the wrong metal entirely. Others featured dramatic misalignments, off-center strikes, double strikes, or ghost-like impressions from die clashes. Even more mysterious, some examples bore a mirror-like finish, as if they were accidentally struck using proof dies in circulation conditions. These weren't mere imperfections. They were relics of a moment gone awry inside the high-speed minting machinery, frozen in metal and shipped out unnoticed. When the first of these coins appeared at a coin show in the early 2000s, it attracted more curiosity than credibility. A dime from 1976 with visible doubling and incorrect metal tones didn't scream value, not at first. But after it was authenticated and sent to auction, jaws dropped. The bidding war was short but fierce. The hammer fell at over $72,000, a number few thought possible for such a modern denomination. But it didn't stop there. Over the following years, more 1976 dime anomalies surfaced, each with its own twist. One example, discovered in a roll of bank-wrapped dimes that had remained untouched since the late 70s, turned out to be struck on a foreign planchet. It was undersized, unusually light, and featured a glossy silver sheen unlike anything from domestic mint specs. Graded and verified by top certification bodies, it went to auction in 2012 and sold for an eye-watering $89,000. That sale opened the floodgates of curiosity. Collectors began inspecting their 1976 dimes with fresh eyes. What had once seemed forgettable was now potentially a fortune. Auction houses began listing 1976 Roosevelt dimes not as fillers, but as headline lots. In 2017, a dime with strong doubling on both the obverse and reverse, particularly on the word liberty and the branches of the reverse, crossed the auction block for $103,000. It was pristine, untouched by circulation, with blazing luster and eye-popping clarity. The buzz around that sale reverberated across the numismatic community. By the time 2020 arrived, the market had firmly embraced the rarity of 1976 dime errors. At a high-profile auction held online due to global conditions, one of the cleanest examples ever documented, a fully struck off-center dime with a dramatic die clash and retained cud, stunned observers by selling for $125,000. This wasn't just an investment anymore, it was the validation of the coin's unique place in American coinage lore. Even conservative estimates today value these rare 1976 dimes at between $65,000 and $125,000 depending on condition, error type, and provenance. And because so many 1976 dimes are still in private hands, pocket change, and old rolls, the full story of their rarity might not yet be known. Every new discovery has the potential to rewrite the ceiling for this seemingly modest coin's value. It's no longer about whether a 1976 dime is rare. It's about which ones are rare, and where they might be hiding. For collectors, the hunt is alive and thrilling. Auction catalogs now dedicate full-page spreads to verified examples. Coin forums buzz with theories about which dies were misaligned and which mint locations are more likely to have produced the rare batches. Some trace their origins to Philadelphia, others to Denver, but the inconsistencies keep the mystery burning, and it's this mystery that keeps collectors coming back. The 1976 dime teaches a crucial lesson: rarity doesn't always announce itself with grandeur. Sometimes, it disguises itself in uniformity. It travels quietly through decades, hidden among billions, only to be discovered by the watchful eye or the lucky soul willing to look closer. The idea that a simple 10-cent coin, long dismissed and ignored, could command a six-figure auction price shakes the foundation of how we assign value. So the next time you come across a 1976 dime, pause for a moment. Turn it under a bright light. Examine the rims, the strike, the fine lines of Roosevelt's face and the shapes of the branches. If you spot something off, don't discard it. Investigate. Consult experts. Because your ordinary coin just might be extraordinary. It could be one of those elusive, rare errors that continue to break auction records and remind the world that true value is often small in size, but vast in story. In the quiet hum of coin-counting machines, where countless dimes slide through fingers without a second glance, there are stories that never get told. Not every coin is just metal stamped with numbers. Some, beneath the surface of copper and nickel, carry tales of error, timing, oversight, and luck. The 1981 USA 1-dime coin is one such example. Lost in the sea of billions, this dime was never meant to be special, yet it has turned into one of the most surprising treasures the modern collector can stumble across. The year 1981 doesn't immediately stir curiosity when it comes to American coinage. It was a year wedged between decades of mass production, where coins became increasingly machine-perfect and less prone to the dramatic flaws of earlier minting eras. The U.S. Mint had largely refined its processes. But even with tightened controls, a few remarkable coins slipped through, coins like the 1981 Roosevelt dime, which would later catch the attention of eagle-eyed collectors and turn everyday pocket change into auction sensations. At first, the 1981 dime appears perfectly routine. It weighs 2.27 grams, composed of copper-nickel cladding over a copper core. Franklin D. Roosevelt's familiar profile dominates the obverse, a design that had become second nature since 1946. The word "Liberty" arcs across the left, and the phrase, "In God We Trust," rests just below Roosevelt's chin. The reverse maintains the classic symbolism: the torch, the olive branch, the oak, representing freedom, peace, and strength. For most Americans, it was a dime like any other, tucked into wallets and purses, spent without hesitation at grocery stores and gas stations, but hidden among these billions were a few that defied convention. The first whispers of something odd emerged when collectors noticed several 1981 dimes with strangely struck letters and misplaced elements. Some bore faint doubling in the inscriptions, while others had rims that looked slightly off, with uneven pressure leaving ghost-like shadows of the design. Then came something even stranger. A small number of dimes from this year began appearing with missing clad layers, exposing a copper core that glowed with an unexpected reddish hue. One of the first known high-grade errors from the 1981 dime series surfaced in a private collection in the early 2000s. It was a stunning example, struck off-center with partial collar, giving it a crescent moon shape. The coin had never entered circulation and retained a dazzling luster. When it was sent for certification, the grading company returned it slabbed with a rare error designation. When it hit the auction block, seasoned collectors took notice. After several rounds of bidding, it sold for just over $62,000. For a coin most people would have passed over in loose change, it was a revelation. Soon after, more examples surfaced, each with its own twist. A double-struck 1981 dime, discovered in a bankroll that had been sealed for decades, was auctioned through Heritage Auctions and fetched nearly $70,000. Another error, this time a broad strike with full design details and a dramatic rim extension, appeared in an estate sale and was later certified and auctioned for a staggering $83,000. But the most impressive find came in 2018, when a pristine 1981 dime struck on a foreign bronze planchet, believed to be an experimental strike never meant for circulation, sold at a private auction for $118,000. That sale sent ripples through the coin collecting world. These auctions began changing how the 1981 dime was perceived. No longer just a filler in coin albums, it had become a legitimate target for error hunters. Collectors scoured their stashes. Dealers dug through back stock. Coin shops began receiving phone calls asking, almost nervously, "Do you have any 1981 dimes with strange details?" The answer, most often, was no. These weren't common. They were like whispers, barely there, but unmistakable once heard. Today, the rarest 1981 dimes hold an estimated value of between $58,000 and $118,000, depending on the type of error, grade, and overall eye appeal. The error types are what make them shine in the auction world. Misaligned dies, off-metal strikes, missing layers, and double denominations are the holy grail here. Some collectors have even reported partial strike-throughs, where foreign objects became lodged between the die and planchet during minting, creating bizarre textures on the coin's surface. Auction houses have recognized the trend. Coins that once would have been buried in bulk lots now receive prominent placement in catalogs and promotional materials. A 1981 dime once buried in a family coin jar was featured in a televised auction segment, drawing over 20 bids and closing at nearly $100,000. The coin's story became part of its charm, a dime forgotten in a kitchen drawer for decades, suddenly the star of a national event, and that is the wonder of the 1981 dime. It reminds us that rarity isn't always loud. Sometimes, it hums beneath the ordinary, waiting patiently to be recognized. It also reflects the unpredictable beauty of the minting process. Despite machines and measurements and rigid quality controls, accidents still happen. And when they do, those accidents become legend. Collectors today continue to hunt for 1981 dimes with intensity. They buy sealed rolls hoping for a hidden treasure. They attend auctions where even imperfect specimens now command serious attention. They network, share photos, compare strike patterns, and debate over whether an example is a legitimate error or just a trick of the eye. The coin has sparked curiosity, passion, and in some cases, wealth. And with so few of these valuable examples confirmed, the market remains eager, hopeful, and highly competitive. So the next time you handle a 1981 dime, whether it's in change, in a coin jar, or part of a random collection, take a second look. The detail, the rim, the color, the strike, they all matter. Because tucked within that humble coin might be a flaw so rare, so perfect, that it transforms a 10-cent piece into a six-figure marvel. And maybe, just maybe, the next record-breaking auction will begin in your pocket. It's hard to imagine that a simple dime, lightweight, often overlooked, used for vending machines and quick change, could be the silent keeper of an American numismatic revolution. But in 1965, that's exactly what the humble one dime became. Not because of its appearance or fanfare, but because of a quiet yet groundbreaking shift that forever changed the way American coins were made. And today, hidden among billions of circulated coins, a select few 1965 dimes have emerged as breathtakingly valuable rarities, some fetching auction prices so high they defy logic. Let's travel back in time to 1965, a year of transition for the U.S. Mint and a major turning point in the history of American coinage. The United States was facing a nationwide coin shortage. Silver prices were rising rapidly, and people were hoarding coins for their melt value. This put immense pressure on the mint. They had to act, and fast. The decision came down swiftly: stop producing circulating dimes, quarters, and half dollars in silver. From 1965 onward, dimes and quarters would be made using a copper-nickel clad composition instead of the traditional 90% silver content. On paper, it was a clean shift. In practice, the transition was anything but smooth. The 1965 Roosevelt dime was the first regular-issue U.S. dime to be struck in the new clad format, outer layers of copper-nickel bonded to an inner copper core. This material was cheaper, lighter, and better suited to mass production. Yet, during this minting chaos, some coins from the previous silver generation crept into the new era. That's when the mystery of the 1965 dime deepened. You see, despite the law forbidding further silver use for dimes, a few were struck, accidentally or otherwise, on leftover 90% silver planchets. Whether it was a simple oversight or a mechanical anomaly, these dimes were released into circulation, unnoticed by the public. They looked nearly identical to their clad counterparts. Only those who paid attention, the weight, the sound, the tonality, realized that something was different, and when those dimes finally reached the hands of collectors, the world took notice. One of the earliest silver 1965 dimes authenticated by a major grading company was sold at a numismatic convention in the early 2000s. The coin, pristine and uncirculated, bore all the hallmarks of a silver composition: slightly heavier weight, softer edge reading, and a distinctive ring when dropped. The bidding war at the auction was nothing short of electric. The hammer dropped at $73,000, leaving even veteran collectors in stunned silence. That was only the beginning. Over the next decade, more 1965 dimes were discovered with compelling characteristics. One was struck on a silver planchet, graded MS-67, and retained a frosty luster unmatched by its clad cousins. It was auctioned by Heritage in 2015 for an eye-opening $91,000. Another was a near-perfect strike error, double die reverse with silver composition, discovered inside an inherited coin jar and later authenticated as one of the finest examples in existence. At a high-profile auction, it went $4,105,000. By the time these coins made national headlines, the numismatic market had taken a sharp turn. The 1965 silver dime was no longer just a minting error. It had become a legend, a chase item, the kind of discovery that makes collectors scour every roll and flip every coin in their collection. And as more of these rare variants hit the spotlight, prices soared. In 2022, an uncirculated 1965 silver dime with flawless fields and deep mirror surfaces achieved a record-setting auction price of $135,000. Today, a verified 1965 dime struck on a silver planchet or featuring significant error types is estimated to be worth anywhere from $70,000 to $135,000, depending on condition and type. But value alone doesn't tell the full story. The excitement, the chase, the electric atmosphere of a live auction as bidders compete for a 10-cent piece that now commands six-figure admiration, that's what makes these coins so enchanting. And there's more. In addition to the famous silver planchet strikes, some 1965 dimes are known to have been struck with significant die misalignments, broad strikes, off-center strikes, and even transitional reverse dies. Each variant has drawn enormous attention at numismatic expos and auction houses alike. Collectors from around the world now watch these auctions with keen anticipation. Whether it's a regional coin show in California or a global online auction hosted from New York, the moment a 1965 dime appears, the bidding paddle numbers start rising, and so does the drama. Yet, despite all this attention, 1965 dimes still circulate today in loose change, in coin jars, and in forgotten dresser drawers. And therein lies the magic. Because one of these extraordinary rarities could be sitting unnoticed in someone's pocket. That is what fuels the treasure hunt, the hope, and the obsession. Collectors continue to search, weighing their dimes, analyzing edge reading, examining the shine, and dreaming of being the next headline. Even the grading companies now handle 1965 dimes with an extra layer of scrutiny. A coin that previously might have slipped by as an ordinary specimen is now tested with precision scales, X-ray fluorescence, and spectral imaging. Why? Because the value of finding another outlier is simply too great. Every so often, another one appears. A new discovery. Another dime once spent on candy or coffee, now recast as a numismatic marvel. So the next time you glance at a dime dated 1965, stop for a moment. Really look at it. Tilt it in the light. Feel its weight. Examine its color. Because while millions of 1965 dimes exist, only a handful were struck in silver, or with dramatic errors, or during that turbulent transition between tradition and modernization. And one of those dimes could be the one that changes your life, because in the world of coin collecting, history is often found in the smallest corners of our wallets. And in the case of the 1965 dime, that history just might be worth over $130,000 at auction.